haven't seen a car in 50 miles.
You know what I just thought of, right?
Kenny and Darla.
You believe that story?
That they had to go looking for her head.
They only found the car.
They never found her head.
What's he doing?
The hell is that? He dumped something down that pipe.
Wrapped in a sheet.
Is this your idea of a little adventure?
I'm just gonna look.
Hello? You know the part in scary movies where somebody does something really stupid and everybody hates them for it? This is it.
Every 23rd spring, for 23 days, it gets to eat.
Eat.
What the hell is that thing?
It's stuck in reverse!
He must have 5, maybe 600 bodies down there.
You've got something it likes, one of you.
You think he's dead?
They never are.
Jeepers Creepers.
Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of a new series on the podcast, The Story Behind the Screams. Each week we're going to take a look at the real-life inspirations behind some of our favourite horror movies. All the way from huge blockbuster horror movies to some lesser-known cult classics and the terrifying real-life stories that inspired them. Some people may not know that the horror movie Jeepers Creepers was actually partially inspired by a true story. The film, written and directed by Victor Salva, stars Justin Long and Gina Phillips as brother and sister duo Gary and Trish Jenner. Travelling home from college for spring break, they encounter true terror as they pass through the countryside of Florida. In the movie, Dari and Trish become targets of a demonic creature known as the Creeper. It all starts when a rusty old truck begins following them down a stretch of road. Later, they see the same vehicle parked by an abandoned church and spot a man sliding what looks to be body bags into a pipe coming from the ground. When the man notices Dari and Trish watching him, he follows them once again in an attempt to run them off the road. The brother and sister duo end up returning to the church to take a look around. And that's when the real horror begins. After a terrifying series of events in which they fight for their lives, the Creeper takes Dari back to his hideout, now known as the House of Pain, where he removes the back of his head and eyes. Jeepers Creepers is named after the 1938 song of the same name, which creepily plays during the movie. Not only is this movie named after a song, it is also loosely based on real-life events. While the character's supernatural backstory and horrible appearance are obviously fictional, some other things you may not have known are grounded somewhat in reality. In the year 1990, Michigan resident Dennis DePue was on the run after his wife's body was discovered behind an abandoned schoolhouse. In fact, the case became so popular that Unsolved Mysteries aired an episode about the story of the brutal murder of Marilyn DePue a year after her death. On Easter Sunday, April 15, 1990, in the state of Michigan, Marilyn, a high school guidance counsellor, was murdered by her abusive and controlling ex-husband Dennis in her own home. The couple had been married for 18 years when Marilyn finally decided to file for divorce in 1989. The entire procedure, despite Dennis's insistence, was finalised in December of the same year. Marilyn was said to be deeply unhappy in the marriage and had also claimed that her husband had abused her and controlled her life, not letting her make decisions of her own. The couple had 3 children. When the divorce was finalised, Dennis managed to obtain visitation rights, although the children either completely refused to or were reluctant to go with him. On Easter Sunday, Dennis came to his former home to pick up the 2 younger children. Julie, the daughter, had already refused to go, while Scott, the son, was reluctant. Marilyn tried to talk to Dennis about Scott, but he became aggressive and threw her down the stairs and then continued to beat her up despite the children's pleas. Their oldest daughter, Jennifer, ran to the neighbours and called the police. At this point, he had stopped hitting her and took her upstairs, telling the children he was taking her to the hospital. However, they never arrived at the hospital. Instead, he took Marilyn to an abandoned schoolhouse and shot her in the head. He assumed that he would not be bothered because few people drove down this isolated road. He reported his wife missing, and his neighbours immediately suspected him as their marital issues were well known. As if this story wasn't terrifying enough, this is where things get extremely creepy. While Dennis was disposing of his wife's body on the isolated road, Ray and Marie Thornton happened upon him and witnessed the act. They were playing a license plate game while on their drive and first noticed his van. The van was pulled over at the abandoned schoolhouse when Marie noticed him moving what she described as a bloody sheet from his van. Once they passed by, Dennis seen them and began to follow very closely for several miles. Eventually, after turning off the highway, Dennis gave up. However, Ray and Marie turned the tables and went back to investigate, only to find Dennis changing his license plates on the side of the road. They also saw blood in the van when they drove by, which convinced them to return to the school where they had first seen him and the bloody sheet. From here, they would report their findings to the police. Later on, this scene following the murder was told on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries and bears a scary resemblance to the opening scene of Jeepers Creepers. Early scenes of Jeepers Creepers copied nearly the exact dialogue, including the license plate game and the chase scene from Unsolved Mysteries. Interestingly enough, film director Victor Salva credited Steven Spielberg's Duel as the inspiration rather than Unsolved Mysteries. Maybe he thought no one made the connection, but the similarities are undeniable. Tire tracks at the schoolhouse did in fact belong to Dennis's van. However, it wasn't until the following day that this was confirmed, when highway workers discovered Marilyn's body. She had been shot once in the back of the head. From here, friends, family, and even local media started to receive anonymous letters postmarked from Virginia, Iowa, and Oklahoma, believed to have been sent by Dennis himself. In the letters, he attempted to explain his former relationship and the reasons behind the murder. He said, "Marilyn had many opportunities to treat me fairly, but she chose to string it out, trick me, and lie to me. When you lose your wife, your children, and your home, there is not much left. I was too old to start over." Dennis also said that Marilyn threw him over the fence while staying on the other side with the children, the house and furniture, all while making him pay for college expenses. He said that it made his depression worse and left him in a hopeless situation. In the letters he asked, "When do people as a last resort react with violence?" He was also quoted as saying, "An eye for an eye or a life for a life." He also apparently made a reference to a movie called The War of the Roses, which is a movie about a wealthy couple going through a bitter divorce that turns violent. Dennis had evaded police for nearly a year when Unsolved Mysteries aired his episode. Police were hopeful that they would get more information. They had a huge outpouring of tips, but one in particular caught their eye. A call from Grapevine, Texas by a woman of the name of Linda Blizzard. She had met a man by the name of Hank Queen at a Halloween party at a popular Dallas night spot. The two began dating and the relationship progressed, which resulted in Hank moving into her home. Queen, an avid sports fan who graduated from Michigan State and worked for a publishing company doing illustrations, worked from home and rarely left the house. Linda's best friend Barbara Harris said she had become suspicious of Hank, stating that Linda didn't know his name, birthplace, he didn't seem to have a driver's license, and no mail ever came to the house for him. It is also reported that he had given her cards for Christmas and birthdays unsigned. Hank was extremely evasive about many things, which led Linda to hiring a private detective to follow him and dig for more information, but it was all a dead end, it seemed. On the night that Unsolved Mysteries aired the Dennis Depew episode, Hank seemed to be uneasy and attempting to distract Linda. He informed her that his family had called and his mother was very ill and he needed to go home and would call her within a week. She had noticed he was loading food and personal items into the van, which was strange. Shortly after he left, Linda received a call from her best friend Barbara, asking about Hank's van. After a short conversation, they both realised that Hank Queen was in fact Dennis Depew. Linda bolted from the house and called the police. She told the police that she always felt there was something a little off about Frank from day one, which was bizarre considering she stayed with him. The next day, Louisiana State Police informed Warren County Sheriff's Department that they were pursuing a 1984 Chevy van with possible Texas plates. He led police across state lines into Mississippi on a 15-mile-long high-speed chase and ran multiple roadblocks. Police eventually shot out 3 of his 4 tires, at which point he opened fire on them. They had returned fire with machine guns. When they didn't receive any retaliation, they approached the van and found Dennis slumped over with a .357 Magnum in his hand. After an autopsy, it was concluded that he had shot himself in the head. So, we end up with a speeding van, a bloody sheet or body bag, an abandoned schoolhouse, and a couple playing a license plate game, all while travelling on isolated roads. Sound familiar? If you watch the segment on Dennis from Unsolved Mysteries and the opening scenes of Jeepers Creepers, it is extremely hard not to see how much they resemble each other, although it's never been officially confirmed, but it has had to have played a part. Jeepers Creepers is one of those huge cult classic horror franchises that never really got the fame it may have deserved, but is extremely beloved by its fans. The entire 3 movies were made for approximately $33.5 million and raked in an incredible $182 million. No doubt there is still gas left in the Creeper's tank, and I'm extremely excited to see him return in this year's Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Thanks everybody as always for your support. Check me out over on Instagram at First Class Horror and let me know your favourite Jeepers Creepers moment.